What is up, everybody? A lot of big fights this weekend, so why not make some picks, right? Mike Tyson, Jake Paul fight on Friday in Arlington, Texas, at AT&T Stadium. UFC 309 a day later, Saturday at Madison Square Garden in New York. The main event there, John Bones Jones defends the heavyweight championship against the former heavyweight champion and the guy a lot of people call the greatest to ever do it at heavyweight. Of course, I'm talking about Stipe Miocic. So I am going to use the DraftKings Sportsbooks lines here for these numbers. And I have three picks on UFC 309. So let's get into those right now. First pick is a guy that I think has a chance to be a contender in the UFC's heavyweight division. Not there yet. He is 8-0 with 7 knockouts. Jonata Diniz. He is plus 124, and he is fighting veteran Marcin Tybura, who is plus 148. Now, I'm a little bit concerned about this pick for only one reason. Denise was supposed to fight in Edmonton on November 2nd against Derek Lewis. He made weight, everything was ready to go, and Derek Lewis got sick on the day of the fight, and so the fight was canceled. So he already went through all of that. How does he handle that 2-week delay after having peaked for fight night on November 2nd? But I really think Denise has a chance to be something special. He's 6'4", 6'5". He has really good hands. He was a kickboxer, fought in glory for a while. A guy that I think really can make an impact in the UFC heavyweight division. And he's fighting Marcin Tybura, a guy that has been kind of a fixture in the bottom half of the top 10, but who hasn't been able to get over the top, and who also now is kind of starting to get to that age where you start to think, I'm not sure he's going to be able to beat the really elite guys anymore. And that's why I like Denise in this spot. He is plus 124, so I think you're getting him at a really good price. I think he's undervalued. People are looking at Tybura, who has really good submissions, who's been around a long time, and who admittedly has faced better competition than Denise. And they are looking and saying that's why he is the favorite. But I think Denise is the better fighter at this point in time. I think he is going to come out there and really put a beating on Tybura, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's an early stoppage. I'm not going to play the total on this one, though, but I am going to say Jonata Diniz at plus 124 to win this fight over Marcin Tybura. So now in my second pick, how can I go against the Fighting Nerds? The way the Fighting Nerds have been going, Caio Berallo earlier this year, last week, Carlos Prates. Now another one of the Fighting Nerds is in action at UFC 309, Mauricio Rufy. And I like Rufy to win this fight over James Lontop, but I like him to win this fight by knockout. He is minus 150 to win by KO, TKO, and DQ. And when you look at Rufy, I mean, he won his contract on the Contender Series. He comes into the UFC and had a very impressive finish of Jamie Malarkey in his UFC debut. I think all these Fighting Nerds are very accomplished strikers. They're very well coached, and I think looking at Lontop, he doesn't have the hands to handle this. I like Rufy minus 150 to win this one by knockout. And then in the main event, I like John Jones to win the main event, but I just can't lay 6 or 7 to 1, right? The line is fluctuating. The last couple times I've seen the line, it has been going down. Jones got up to minus 700 at one point. And as I record this right now on Wednesday afternoon, it is minus 625 for Jones at DraftKings Sportsbook. And while I think Jones wins the fight, I do give Miocic a chance to win the fight, and I think that's too big a number to bet against a guy that everybody and his brother would tell you is the greatest heavyweight in UFC history. And yeah, I know that Stipe hasn't fought since March of 21. He hasn't won since August of 20. I get that, and I've considered that, and I think those are big factors. But I just don't want to lay that kind of number. If Jones was 2 to 1, even 3 to 1, then I might be a different story. But when you're laying 6 to 1, I think that's a big number to lay against a great fighter like Stipe Miocic, and I'm going to pass on that. I don't like that. But I think this is going to be a long fight. I think I'm going against the grain here. but I don't see this fight ending quickly. Over 2.5 rounds is plus 105. And I love that spot because I think this fight is going to go the distance, right? Um, and I think you're going to see Jones use his wrestling if he feels threatened by Miocic's striking. Um, I don't know that Miocic is going to be able to really close the distance enough against Jones. I think as he tries to close the distance, you'll see John throwing kicks and using his legs, and he has that great range, and he's able to get away and move uh, out of danger whenever he needs to use his agility in that case. So I don't see Miocic closing the distance where he can land something big and end the fight. But I also don't see Jones doing what he did to Cyril Gahn in his heavyweight debut at UFC 285, where he easily took Gahn down and then submitted him. Gahn to me looked like a deer in the headlights in that one. I think he was overcome by the moment. I'm not really sure why, but he just didn't look ready for that fight. And Jones just simply overwhelmed him. Miocic may go down, but I don't think he's going to be overwhelmed. I believe Stipe Miocic will be ready and he will put up the best fight that he is capable of putting up. I just think John Jones is on a different level, not only from Stipe Miocic, but from everybody else in the sport. I like Jones to win this, but I'm going to go over 2.5 rounds at plus 105 in that. So to recap my picks on the UFC, I am taking Jonata Denise at plus 124 to win over Marcin Tybura. I am taking Mauricio Rufy to win by KO at minus 150 over James Lontop. And I am taking the Jones Miocic fight to go over 2.5 rounds at plus 105. On the boxing on Friday night in Arlington, Texas, I have two plays there. My first play, I in the Amanda Serrano Katie Taylor fight. They had a fantastic fight in 2022 at Madison Square Garden, and there's no possible way that I think this rematch will come close to that. Neither fighter is what she was in 2022. That came at the perfect place at the perfect time. It was just a perfect storm, and they put on an unbelievable show. I think both fighters are a little bit diminished from what they were then. Not greatly, and I don't think both of them are washed, but they're certainly a little bit diminished here. And the fight is being contested at 140 pounds. I think that favors Katie Taylor. She is the naturally bigger woman. And Amanda Serrano, I think, would have a better shot if this fight were at 135. Taylor's not able to make 135 anymore comfortably, so she is now fighting at 140. Taylor by decision at plus 100, I think, is a pretty good play here. So that's what I will go with. Katie Taylor by decision over Amanda Serrano at plus 100. And that brings me to Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul. And boy, I wish this fight was not happening. I just hate to see a 58-year-old man getting hit in the head. And that there's no reason for that. And it doesn't send a good message to boxing. Boxing is a young man's game. And James Toney said this so many times over the years, you don't play boxing. And we think Mike is all right, and we think he's healthy, and he's going to pass the physical and all those other things. But 58-year-old men are not 27-year-old men, and they're a little bit different. And that concerns me a lot going into this fight. Now, who is the more talented, the better fighter? Of course, come on. There's no question that Mike Tyson, has the better boxing pedigree, the more talent, et cetera, than Jake Paul does. But Mike Tyson is, 20 years past his prime, 25 years past his prime. You might say Tyson's prime was even in the 1980s, right? I mean, when you think about it, he opened 1990 by losing to Buster Douglas. And do you ever think that Tyson was as good again as he was when he beat Michael Spinks in 1988? I think there's a pretty good argument that he was not. And, so Mike Tyson's prime might have been, 36 years ago. That was 9 years, almost 10 years before Jake Paul was born. And how does a guy at 58 years old who hasn't been getting hit in the head, how does he beat a 27-year-old who is boxing? Now, I don't think Jake Paul, I admire some of the things that Jake Paul has done. I think he has brought attention to boxing. That's great. He has promoted women's fights. I think that is fantastic. I like his outside the box thinking and how he's bringing new people into the sport. And I think I give him a lot of credit. There are guys that try these stunts in different sports. I've written stories about people who they hadn't played golf before, and they said they want to take lessons for a full year and then go see if they can make it on the PGA Tour. And inevitably they cannot do that. Nobody ever does that, right? But that people try that, and that goes on. And that's kind of what it feels like Jake Paul is doing. I give Jake a lot of credit, though. I mean, I would say, he is if he wasn't a celebrity, if he wasn't this famous social media star, and he was just a boxer, I would say he's a mid to lower level cruiserweight guy, probably not going to win a championship, but a guy that, can beat some decent fighters, will, lose to the best fighters. But, I think Jake has really gotten a lot better as he has progressed in his boxing journey. I give him an awful lot of credit for what he's doing. Now, if this was prime Jake Paul versus prime Mike Tyson, not even close. And I don't think the fight would ever be sanctioned. But it's not prime Jake Paul versus prime Mike Tyson. It's prime Jake Paul versus 58-year-old Mike Tyson. And I urge you, if you're a Mike Tyson fan, to go back and think about what Mike Tyson looked like in those last couple fights in his career. His last 4 fights were in 2002 against Lennox Lewis. He got stopped in 8 rounds. Lennox just absolutely dominated that fight. Mike comes back in 2003, and he really intimidates Clifford Etienne, and he stopped him in the first round. And then he finishes his career with single fights in 2004 against Danny Williams, 2005 against Kevin McBride. And both of those, he got beat. Mike was exhausted after 6 rounds against Kevin McBride. Just a journeyman guy, not a really good fighter. Mike just couldn't go on past 6 rounds, had to quit on the stool. Kevin McBride won that TKO 6. That was Mike Tyson 23 years ago. Is Mike Tyson going to be better, right? Is he going to be a better fighter? It wasn't 23, 19 years ago. So I'm sorry about that. But still, is Mike Tyson going to be better than the guy he was then? I just don't think so. And I just look at this fight and I say, this is going to be bad for Mike. So now if we're approaching it from a betting standpoint, I am tempted to bet the under, because I think the referee is going to have a quick trigger finger for Mike. So I think if Mike gets in any trouble, they're going to jump in and stop it. I don't know that they would necessarily admit that, but I think that knowing that he is 58 years old and he has fought a full career and he's fighting a young guy in his prime, I just think the referee is going to have that quick trigger finger. He doesn't want to be the person responsible for something bad happening to Mike Tyson in there. So that would also lead me to think, hey, Mike may get hit with a punch and, be reeling a little bit, and the ref jumps in and stops it. But I don't want to play that because, who knows? So I'm going to just play Jake Paul. He's minus 210 right now at DraftKings Sportsbook. I'm going to play Jake Paul to win the fight. That way, I believe Paul will probably win by knockout, unfortunately, but I want to be on the safe side on my play. So I'm going to say Jake Paul to win at minus 210. Mike is plus 170. Can he still punch? I imagine that Mike's going to punch pretty hard still, but I think Jake will be able to create distance, have the angles, and I think he'll be able to avoid getting hit with a really big Tyson shot. I think he's going to have a big advantage in quickness in this fight. I don't think Mike is going to have those fast hands, and especially if Jake can survive early, right? Mike's best bet is going to be come out there, put the pressure on Jake early, throw a lot of punches, and basically throw heavy artillery at him from the very beginning of the fight. And if he does that, I think he has a chance to catch Jake, hurt him, and maybe win the fight. But I think the more likely scenario is that Mike just doesn't have the energy to get off. He doesn't have the quickness to compete with Jake Paul. And then he's going to get frustrated and swing at air, and he's going to get countered a lot. So I like Jake Paul, so I'm going to go ahead and play Jake Paul minus 210 to defeat Mike Tyson, who is plus 170 as an underdog at DraftKings. I hope you enjoy the fights, everybody. UFC 309 is on ESPN Plus pay-per-view, and the Paul Tyson fight is on Netflix, so that is free if you have a subscription. Enjoy the fights, and I hope all your bets cash. Be well, everyone.